Just in here. Oh,
Okay.
Was that the NSA?
Yeah, I think it's a new feature on Zoom that
Was that
they
just
actually,
Google?
No, it's
They're not
they
that polite. Zoom.
No, they don't tell you.
Zoom just started this week doing it. All right, we are recording this session, so welcome everybody to our May meeting. So I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Puck, and we got a few announcements.
All right. First announcement is we have a birthday party coming up, so that you see it down there, but we'll talk about that when we get to it. The other thing is we just finished a trip to the South Lino River. We had 11 people make the flow trip on Saturday. Had some guys just couldn't stand it, had to show up early, like Thursday, and fish on Friday. They had a great time, even though it was a very long, arduous trip on Friday, because they went from KC 130 down to the Curtis's. It was tough on them, but they fished again on Saturday. So I work on the trip report for that. It was a great time. We had some casting lessons, we had some food, we caught some fish, and we had a great time. Let's see what else was going on. We've got outings coming up. We're going to be talking about some things on this session tonight. It's going to be kind of fun. It's going to be like a round robin. Jim, before I get carried away, do you want to talk about the women's fly casting in June 26th?
Yeah, I do, Puck. But first, I just want to say we had a great casting event this past month, advanced intermediate casting clinic / workshop. We had 16 students, 4 certified casting instructors, and a special guest master casting instructor, Jeff Ferguson, came over from Lake Charles, Louisiana. So it was a great event, a lot of enthusiasm. Special thanks to Jeff for getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, getting home at 10 o'clock at night, and making the day really kind of special for everybody. With regard to the women's clinic, we've been working toward trying to feature some events for the female anglers that are in the club, possibly increase the membership of the ladies, and also provide special activities for them. The idea seems to be that sometimes anybody might feel a little bit more comfortable in a group of a certain type. So we've been working with Stacy Lynn, who's an experienced casting instructor. She's also a guide down in Rockport, to put together an event for the women in the club, for the spouses of the men in the club, for the children, the female children, any of the female anglers that are associated with the club or want to be, to have a special event. The title is actually Women's Beginning Fly Fishing Workshop and Picnic. It's going to be held Saturday, June the 26th, between 8 and 2 o'clock. We have 2 of the female members, club members, who are taking the point on this for the club, and that's Piper Turner and Corinne, I think is the way she pronounces her name, Bedlaw. So it's a special thing for the ladies. I hope we'll have a decent turnout. Stacy's going to limit the participation. Currently, the Saturday participation is limited to 6 participants. The cost is $100. If you're interested in registering, the contact information will be posted on the website within the next few days. If you want to move on it before then, Stacy's phone number is 512-750-8661, and her email address is stacy@wowflyfishing.com. So spread the word, and see if we can't put together something special for the female anglers in the club. Thank you, Puck.
All right. So another thing that we have is our annual elections. Ted's been working on getting our election results together, trying to gather our officials. If you know somebody who would like to step forward, or if you'd like to step forward, put your name up in the hat, and let's find out what it is you'd like to do with the club. We're not here for tenure, guys. This is a non-paying position. We do it because it's fun. and it really is. So if you want to
It
step
is.
up, let us know, and well, I enjoy it. That's because I get to boss you around.
I don't pay any attention to you.
But anyways, if you'd like to step up, or you know somebody would like to step up, volunteer their name, and we'll put their name in the hat. And we're going to have the auction. We're going to have the election in June. We typically have it at the June meeting. However, the June meeting is going to be online. So Ted's been working on getting an election style format together. It's looking pretty good. We'll put the date out there when we're finally cleaned up and ready to launch it. Meetings. Captain Stubby is going to talk about rod building and other things. You're not going to keep Stubby on task. I'm sorry. Scooby is, he talks about all kinds of stuff. His focus is going to be rod building, but he loves to fish Toledo Bend, and he'll tell you about it. Great guy, great talker. A lot of fun to hang out with. I think Ron Mayfield went fishing with him recently up on Toledo Bend, said it was a fun time. So we expect to have a good time. Whoops. Somebody
Cujo
mute Jerry. All right, guys, we started this club back in 1976. I don't know what the exact month was we started it, but it was 1976. So we're going to have our anniversary party at Busher State Park. It's listed on the state parks. We have the kitchen. It'll hold about 80 people. There's a lake. There's picnic tables. There's things to do. It's not that far from the Houston area, an hour and a half, hour and 45-minute drive max. It's a day trip. We have it from 8 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock at night, the kitchen. And I hope we have a very good participation. Details to be posted, and I will need volunteers to help cook, clean up, set up, classes. We're going to be door prizes, whatever we can get away with on this. We're going to have fun.
Working if you want to see the sun.
What? I didn't hear who that was. Okay, so that is the anniversary party. August is the mini expo work. That is a work in progress. We still plan to have it at our normal place. We're still checking on any restrictions. And the September meeting, we're looking at a new location, details to be posted as soon as we finalize and are sure we have everything locked and cocked. Eric, did I miss anything?
So just for clarification, we'll have the June 29th meeting will be Zoom. And then we'll have the July and August events will not be a Tuesday night meeting. So these will be weekend Saturday events in place of our normal meetings.
There you go. Now this anniversary party is also our awards party. So we've got to get together and figure out what awards are we doing? And we used to have
Teaching women, they got a women.
Okay. Eric, anything else?
I think that's it.
All right.
So with that, for tonight's discussion, we decided to do a panel discussion, and we're going to have Mr. Puck, Chris Summers, Ron Mayfield, Scott, Ted, who am I missing? John Elred. So it's going to be a kind of a discussion panel, and let me go ahead and advance the screen. So the topics we're going to talk about, just the basics that are needed for fly fishing. So, we've got some new members in the club, and making sure, don't be overwhelmed with what we need. And then what do you need to get started? Strategy for fishing, and then fishing on and off, once you go fishing, and then what to do before and after the trip off the water. So with that.
You betcha. Basics. Yep, that's right.
So put this together because, we all have a whole closet full of stuff.
You want to listen to this?
Yeah.
So, so the basics, if you're going minimalist, if you're going down to the neighborhood pond or just walking down to the golf course, whatever, just the basics that you need. Sling glasses, mention that first, safety. You've got flies that are zooming past your head. You're able to see the fish better. Make sure you got your sun protection as far as your hat, clothing, sunscreen, etc. And then basically you need a rod, reel, line, tippet, a couple of flies, and then a couple of tools. So hemostats, nippers. Okay, if you don't have nippers, fingernail clippers work just as good. So you don't have to break the bank going for equipment. And it just takes a little bit of equipment to get out and go fishing. So,
Hey, Eric,
Now,
yes.
one thing that you probably ought to bring up with these items is the fact that these are items that whether you're at the neighborhood pond or you're going to the Bahamas, most of these items you ought to put on a lanyard and keep in your bag because they're going to come in handy on all fly fishing trips, or even just if you're going for a lesson or something, you may need to cut a tippet or have a piece of tippet with you. These are just kind of the standard overall items.
And, the
And-
other
and-
thing about this is, this is the stuff that you just put in a shirt pocket. If you go down and buy some flies, they give you a little container. You throw those in your pocket. You don't need the fancy backpack. You don't need the, everything. This is just the minimalist trip.
You got it. And when you say sunglasses, Eric, a lot of us wear prescription glasses. Now, you don't have to buy prescription sunglasses to be able to see the fish. They have the fit overs that, like cocoons, they fit over your regular glasses, and they work fairly well. There's a few members that actually do that. They carry their cocoons in their pocket. The sun comes out, they put it over their regular glasses. They see the fish just as well as I do with my expensive glass lens, special glasses. They see just as well as I do. And their cocoons are actually a polycarbonate, which are better hook resistant and more impact resistant than my glass glasses. So, don't even get me started on color of sunglasses. Oh
And
my
they're
goodness.
they're a hell of a lot less expensive too.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. You've already got your prescription sunglasses. The cocoons that fit over are less than $50 for the very, very good ones.
And if you
And color, man, you could get into an argument over sunglass color.
and if you're fishing at night, clear safety glasses are very good to protect your eyes, especially if you're fishing with more than just yourself. If you're in a group, you
Agreed.
want
Or in a
safety
boat.
glasses.
And guys, folks don't realize how at nighttime you're doing everything by feel and sound, and the person that's within casting distance of you can't see your fly. So you're right. The clear safety glasses, they're what, $3?
Well,
You don't know they're on your face. You kind of forget about them.
Mm-hmm. You may want to consider bug spray too, especially at night.
Well, depends on where you're at, but you're right. This is Texas. We have plenty of bugs to spare. But you do that before you leave out of the house. You spray yourself down or you spray your clothes. And bug spray, that's not on the list. But guys, I'm here to tell you, what I use for bug spray isn't what everybody else uses because it takes a little more preparation. I do this days ahead of time. I spray down the clothing spray. I spray down the head net. I spray down the hat. I spray down the gloves. I spray down the socks. And it dries for 2 days before I go fishing. Other people, they love the DEET. They spray it on their skin and they're in good shape. I just don't like DEET because you get DEET on your fly line, it's destroyed.
What kind of spray do you use for your clothes, Puck?
I go buy that Sawyer's out of Bass Pro or Cabela's or it's Perithrum. I probably said it wrong, but that's what I use. And what I do is I put it in a pump sprayer, add a little bit of water, and I spray my clothes down, let them dry in the garage.
And of course, while we're talking about night, you can go down to Academy and buy one of those little lamps that clip onto the bill of your ball cap that you can get in 3 different colors. You can get them in white, you can get them in green, and you can get them in red. So that way, I know that a lot of places with good clear water and very sensitive trout will not react well to a big bright sun lamp on you when it comes on.
That's true. And that Ted just put the link up, guys, and that is exactly what I use. I just mix it with a little bit of water and I put it in a pump sprayer. I pump it up and I spray the living crap out of my clothes and let it dry. Now, if you're going to be fishing at night with me in the same water as I am, and you're using a light, please stay away. Because I have been down at multiple waters, and I'll yell fish on a few times because I can't help myself. And then before you know it, I've got a flashlight pointing at me. Whoop, there goes my fish, and I got to move again. And at nighttime, I'm either in a kayak or a kick boat. So, you know, it's difficult to move fast, find fish that haven't been spooked by the light. So yeah, it's just part of it, part of the deal. Now we were back on gear. We were still talking about sunglasses, and we got distracted by clothing and flashlights, which both are great ideas. And flashlights are a safety item. You should carry it every time you go in the dark, a minimum of one, possibly two, because even if you check your flashlight, as soon as you get on the water, Murphy is alive and well. So can you get back to the first? There you go. Sunglasses, sun protection. That'll be a good topic. Now, how many of us have never got sunburned in their life? Yeah, right. Everybody has their favorite sunscreen. They really do. Everybody has their favorite hat. Clothing is pretty much a standard: long sleeve, long pants, something to protect your toes when you're walking around with shoes. Sandals are great, but if you're going to be stumbling around, you want some sandals with a nose point. Hats is another story. Everybody loves ball caps and full brims. I like to keep the back of my neck protected. Scott, what is the name of the hat that you wear all the time?
Tilly.
Yeah.
Who?
A Tilly
A what?
hat. This is a Tilly hat. If I'm popping up, you can see it. I load it down with
Man, I'm not
flies.
popping up yet.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
No,
we can hear you. We
fine.
can't see you.
Yet.
Okay.
And Piper says she loves Tilly hats.
Mhm.
And because it's also my fly box, if you debarb the hook, you get the synthetic Tilly. It has holes in the stovepipe that are
Okay.
great for a fly box.
All right, that's a good point. I didn't think about that. As a place to dry flies as a hat, and with you've got a debar. There you go. Now
I
you
just
see it.
turned my camera on, so here's the hat. If you get one of these, do not get the extra wide brim. It is not stiff enough, and the wind will always blow it up.
Hold it.
You want
good point.
the quote normal size brim, and it holds lots of flies. No need to carry a fly box.
Yeah. And I've been using a cloth hat for years, but I've had to learn, as Scott said, that if the brim's too wide, it'll fold up on you. Well, Texas always has wind on the coast, and most of the time on our other waters. So what I've wound up doing is actually putting starch into the brims of my hat to be able to keep it stiff enough to keep the wind from folding it up. Ain't nothing worse than saying, yeah, I wore my hat all day and still get burnt. So anyways, and the clothing, there are specialty clothing out there that will protect you better from the sun than others. If you take and wear a regular cotton t-shirt, the sun's going to go right through it and you're going to come back burnt, especially if you spend 6, 8, 10 hours on the water. Some of the other materials that are designed for the outside and they wick the moisture away, wear them all day, wear them 2 or 3 days, and you won't get burnt. Or I didn't anyway. And I was down on the South Atlanta for 3 days in a row this week. No issues, no problems. So sun protection. What do we miss, guys? I know that we talked about a few things, but I know there's things we didn't talk about. Chris?
Buffs.
Buffs. Oh my
Be sure
goodness.
and pack a buff.
At least one.
Yeah.
Another good thing, especially if you plan on actually catching big fish, is a stripping guard to protect your index and middle finger. You can either get the stripping guards like Puck is showing up. You can get fishing gloves that have long index fingers, or
Well,
you can use athletic tape.
Yep, this right here is one Nilo made for me. She has a bunch of this material. She made me this one because my fingers are longer than what they sell. So anyway, it works great. It works great. You're right. I forgot about the stripping guard because if you ever get into the backing will get into your fingers.
And if you use textured lines,
I didn't think about that.
they are rough on fingers, and your fingers are always
They are
wet.
abrasive. You are right. You are
Hey,
correct.
Puck.
So your finger's going to be soft. The line's going to be difficult. John?
You might say a little bit about the, about first aid for if you're fishing out in the salt water with, since we're on the topic of sounds like safety bits, that liquid skin
Yeah.
that Ron always talks about, and
Oh,
making sure
yeah,
you got, make sure you got triple antiseptic and
Okay, buddy.
And,
I'll look at it right now.
liquid
Bye-bye.
skin or something in case you get a hook or a knife or whatever in your skin.
And
That's-
it's always good in salt water because there's not that many fish that jump in salt water. In Texas anyway, to debarb your hooks. I only use debarbed hooks because I've been hooked in the middle of the back by others.
Yeah.
Well, I've been on the Poland platform where I couldn't even touch the fly. Luckily, it didn't go past the barb, but
still.
I do not want to get hooked, and I especially do not want to get hooked with a barbed hook where it goes past the barb.
You got it. Now, first aid kits, there was 2 first aid kits on the trip that we took this weekend on our Saturday trip. But what had happened is we split. So I'm hoping that Paul's group that went on with it, that actually had a first aid kit too, but the group that fell behind from the second crossing, I know there were at least 2 first aid kits. When you go on a trip or you go on an outing, if you don't have a first aid kit, ask around, see who does. Just the basics, Band-Aids, antiseptics, wipes, stuff like that. Just basics. Find out who's got one. So that will round out our safety stuff for just a quick trip. I actually keep a Band-Aid in my wallet just because I know I'm going to do something stupid. Rod, reel, line, and tippet. Oh my goodness, that is a can of worms. Pun
So,
intended.
and we've got the basic equipment in the next section. So,
Yeah, we probably should do that. Let's do that.
But I mean, you still need your rod, reel, line, and tippet.
right.
You got it.
I've known a lot of people that have got out with their rod, their reel, their line, but no leaders or tippet.
Yep, I've done it myself. Water needs to be part of your core kit, guys. Well, that's from Brian Clark. He's got a point because he fishes he spends a lot more time. I'm thinking about if I'm just walking to my neighborhood pond, which is a quarter mile away, I can be back at home in a quarter mile. But if I'm going a little further, going to be away from the house for an hour, what's the general rule? A quart an hour? Is that what it is? Drink a quart an hour, and then if but anyway, you drink the water when you need it. He's right. He's right. Water needs to be part of your core kit. Always take water with you. If you don't need it. What was that again, Alex?
Don't wait until you're thirsty. If you're thirsty, it's too late.
Right.
Yeah, that's it. I tell you what, if the water does you better in you than it does in your water bottle, so drink it.
Right.
All right.
So,
And if you're in a kayak or a boat, nowadays with so much plastic being generated, if you got a jug that you can carry, that will make a lot less trash to have to deal with at the end of the day.
Yeah, I typically carry a Nalgene because I've been using the same Nalgene bottle for years. That's just me, but I've also got stainless steel bottles. I prefer the Nalgenes. That's just me. I can fill them up from my jug downstairs and take it with me wherever I go. So, all right, he makes a good point, and that was what does he mean by mountain money? Can you unmute Brian for a minute where he can tell us what he's talking about?
Brian Clark.
Yes, sir.
What I mean by mountain money, y'all need to spend more time in the mountains.
Oh, okay. More time in the mountains. I got you. All right, buddy.
Oh, I'm just saying, sometimes you gotta, there's things that happen out there and you should be prepared. Maybe not at your neighborhood pond, but if you go a little farther afield, it's just a matter of time.
Well, a wading staff, good shoes.
Again, that was just basics. If you're the minimalist,
it all varies.
It all varies. So kind of keep us on track. We wanted to talk a little bit about getting started with gear.
Hey, Eric,
without breaking the bank.
Eric, before we go to this section, would you go back to that first slide? Down in the bottom, down in the bottom, the tools, hemostats, nippers, and stuff. If you're going saltwater fishing, you're going to need a little bit heavier and longer hemostats, and you're also going to need a good set of heavy duty fishing pliers and wire cutters.
Oh, yeah.
Your hooks are going to be a lot heavier if you have to cut a hook out of somebody, or if you've got, if you happen to have a some kind of holding
Wire.
apparatus to hold your fish, you know what, and use the other one to take it. But I've done a lot of saltwater fishing in my life, and a good pair of stainless steel saltwater, or they don't even have to be stainless steel. You know, you can just get a good pair of needle nose pliers, just something that's going to be a little heavier duty because you're dealing with a lot stouter fish and a lot larger hooks, and you might be running a leader wire.
Yeah. And Marcos mentions a file to sharpen the hooks. I actually have a diamond file on my fly tying table. I'll actually sharpen the flies hooks before I put them in the box. And I learned something from Les Lehman is after you sharpen a hook, you're inviting rust because you just took off the protective coating. So what he recommends you do is you take and run a marker over it, just a regular marker, because it puts a thin coat of protective coating on it, and it'll keep the hook sharp and keep it from rusting. So it's just a neat trick. So a file stays on my desk. I probably should put one in my go bag, but I don't do it.
If you carry a lanyard with you, that's a good thing to keep on the lanyard.
Yes, agreed.
They also make some little pockets that you can shoot a little protective oil or something up in there and slide them in there, because a file's the first thing that's going to rust, you know, before you leave the house.
Right. Yeah. If you get the diamond encrusted stainless steel, it's pretty durable. They cost a little more, but I think they're worth it. All right. So
so that's the first $1,000 of your expense money.
Okay.
Yeah, well,
That doesn't sound like you.
where do you get the most efficient gear? From your friends.
Hey, Puck, that doesn't sound like you getting diamond encrusted stainless steel.
And my wife bought them and I appropriated.
There you go.
So you know, one of the questions we hear from people a lot is, you know, why do I need to spend $800 on a Sage ride? Where can you get economical fishing gear?
At the auction.
Okay, at the auction.
Used gear is a great value. There's not much you can do wrong with used fly gear. A reel, as long as it's not, if you look at a picture and it's not rusty. A rod, as long as it's not broke. Because you will break fly rods. It's not if, it is when. Usually it's from car doors, ceiling fans, rod holders in boats. I've never broken one on a fish. I've broken plenty of rods. So.
Yep. So guys, I say the most economical way to find your fishing gear is go fishing with somebody else, and then go online and look for somebody getting rid of stuff because they didn't like it, or you find an estate sale that somebody they're done with the gear because they're no longer with us. Go to the auctions, not just our auction. There's other clubs that have auctions, and they have good stuff that is no longer used by the members. It's a great place to find gear, and if it's got a scratch or two on it, that does not hurt its value at all when it comes to fishing or catching fish. Seriously.
So the other thing that Kevin Hutchinson mentioned to us one time is if your company has a bargain board or buy, sell, trade, look on there, because somebody may have gotten a fly rod for Christmas. They don't use it.
That's right. That does happen. Think about it. I was talking to somebody today that said that he bought a fly rod as a gift for somebody, and they said, here it is, you can have it back because I'm never going to use it. Find somebody else. So it happens, guys. You know, you have folks that have fly rods that are stashed in closets that have gathered dust that somebody's grandfather had that they just forgot about. So they're out there. And if you can't find a fly rod, get with a local fly fishing club, and we can usually point you in the right direction. And also, I didn't think about that. we have a deal for purchasing through the club. So if we want to buy 10 fly rods, we've got 10 folks who want the same fly rod, we might be able to get a better deal for somebody or 10 somebodies.
And we've also got a lot of rod builders and rod building classes that we do. So it's a great opportunity there.
That's true. There's a great opportunity. And
also, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of cheaper fly rods on the market. I mean, you don't have to buy. I mean, everybody talks about the big fly rods, the $800-900 or whatever, as $500. My favorite fly rod for the salt is a $200 Redington CRX, which I've had for 12 years, and I won't swap it for anything because it suits me, and you know it all depends. You know, you could look upon, for years when I was a student, I never spent over $50 an entire outfit.
I know what you mean, Alex. I have a fly rod that I absolutely love. It's an 8-weight, and I have a Martin reel on it. Anybody knows that name? They're made by Zebco. Martin reel. It's an 8-weight, and I bought it in 1993 for $15. And when I tell you the brand name, you're going to shake your head saying they don't make fly rods. It's an Ugly Stick by Shakespeare. It's a fly rod that I've been using since '93, and I handed it to Ron Mayfield, and he just cussed me a little bit and handed it back.
Well, they still make, the Ugly Stick still makes a couple of fly rods. That's what they use down at Silver King Lodge as their boat rods.
Exactly. It works great, and I've had it for all these years. It's one of the rods that I love to give to newbies because they have to slow down. They slow down. They take a back cast. They take a coffee break. They make a forward cast. They have another sip of coffee. It's a very slow, leisurely rod, and it didn't cost but $15. So they're out there, guys. They're easy to find. You just have to say, am I learning or am I experienced? And do I want to spend the time to research and chase down a better bargain? They're out there. It's just a matter of finding what fits you. And there's all kinds of places to go, all kinds of places to look. But what do you keep in mind? The two questions here. They should have question marks on them.
The only, when you talk about value fly reels, I would just avoid the brand new Chinese reels that are less than $50. I have one that I use just as a line storage reel, stays in my bag, and it is rust corroding, and it's never seen the water.
Damn.
So I think we need to specify here between saltwater, freshwater. If you're doing 5-weight, the reel's not quite as important for brim, but for saltwater, heavier, yes, the reel's more important.
And
I think that's a really good point, Eric.
Saltwater for a couple of reasons. One for the line capacity, and two for the corrosion.
Thank you.
And who was that? Who was that in the background there, Eric? Can you figure it out?
Yeah, I got it taken care of.
That was a good point, Eric. Good point, Eric.
That is a good point, because honestly, you have two factors in the saltwater you don't have in the freshwater. The amount of the backing that it's got to be able to hold, and the corrosion resistance. Those aren't a factor in the freshwater, but they are definitely a consideration for the salt.
They're a factor with salmon, and they're a factor with trout.
On why trout?
Oh, you bigger trout. If you're using a 5-weight on the gray hole there on North Platte, and you get a 21-inch, 22-inch trout, he's gonna take off. And
but how much backing you're talking
really
about,
good
John?
drag.
You're only talking about 30, 40 yards. The drag, we didn't say anything about the drag. The drag, that's another story. But you're right. You're going to want your drag. But we said backing capacity and corrosion resistance.
Well,
and those two aren't really a factor for those trout.
Yeah, but salmon and steelhead, I was just steelhead hunting.
Yeah,
and
salmon for sure.
They'll run 100 yards down the river.
Okay. Yeah, I can believe it. I can believe it. So you're going to need at least 100 yards of backing in
Yeah, it depends on the fish.
Situation?
Depends, yeah.
There you go.
Question on the fish.
Depends on your target species.
There's no steelhead in Texas. There's not many steelhead.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of steelhead in Texas. Well, wait a minute. We have to talk to Matt Blythe about that because I think they raised the steelhead in the classroom again this year.
Did we not have any surviving steelhead from the last one?
I don't think so.
Okay, back on track.
All right, what are you planning on fishing for? If you're fishing in the freshwater, you're fishing for bass and bluegill and whatever, you know, bass, depending on, I like to fish 5 weights, but on windy days, I'll pick up an 8 for the bass. And that just because of the wind. What am I planning on fishing for? It depends on what I'm fishing for is what route I grab, honestly.
For bass fishing, for me, it depends on the size of the fly I'm throwing. If I'm throwing a big 2-aught bass popper, you need a big rod, 8 or larger. For saltwater, 8 weight is the standard go-to, though my favorite is a 7.
Okay.
But you don't need
I
it.
took the 8 in the saltwater because of the wind.
You don't need an 8 weight. If all you have is a 5, use it.
There you go.
Think you have to have an 8 weight to fish salt water. Yes, it's windy. You can overcome the wind if you're a good caster, which means you just need to practice more. So if you practice more, you can conquer the wind. You can go out there and fish in the spring. This past week has been, this whole winter and spring has been extremely windy. But I've been out fishing, fly fishing.
Oh yeah, yeah.
No problem.
Well, you know,
So moving on from the reels, because it's going to depend on the rod and the reel for the application. What type of line are people using, and what that's a whole can of worms there.
Floating is going to be the standard. However, me being me, I don't stick with floating line. There are applications where sinking line or sink tip line will work better. But the general consensus is use a weighted forward floating on every rod you have. But there are applications for a full sink and a sink tip. And there's also applications for a shooting head.
Yeah, Puck, I would say, you know, this is John, for getting started, you know, like I bought my daughter and her fiance, so I built them rods, and I put weight forward floating and just told them, you know, as they're learning, that seems to be the easier lines. And I don't know, Ron, you can correct me, but it seems like those are the easier lines to cast, to learn with. And
exactly. And for a beginner, weighted forward floating, I'm going to agree is the way to go.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that don't get a mindset that that's all there is.
And then there's tropical and cold water.
That is true, Mr. Purcell. That because I have tried to use a trout line for bass, and it was a total disaster. It got sticky on me. It wasn't designed for the water. But the generally, they do fairly well down here in Texas. There are occasional specialty lines that just don't work. I can name a couple of them, but I'm not supposed to. Yeah, what's up, Alex?
Oh, I would add, hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I hear you.
I would add to that for river fishing, trout fishing in particular, on small to medium rivers, if you can get them, the old double tapered lines, that you can still buy them. The finesse on those, you're not casting very far, you're only casting 15, 25 feet. The finesse with those double tapered lines that were designed that way years ago is far superior, and they're much easier to cast because you only have a small amount of line outside, and you don't need a weight forward to push the fly because you only have small flies. So on small rivers, by far and away the easiest and the cheapest line to buy is a double tapered Orvis or Cortland or Airflow line.
They're getting harder to find, Alex.
Yes, they are, but they're still out there. And if you can get your hands on them, they're fantastic.
hey, I might throw in, Puck, I might throw in something just before, something I learned down here, probably more than up in Alaska, when so my floating line kept sinking. And I couldn't figure out why. And then I did something called cleaning it. And I guess I just didn't, I didn't think about that because the waters I fished up north were colder and I would venture to say
pristine.
cleaner. And
Yep.
I came down here and once I bought that $10 thing to, wipe them clean, they started floating again. So that's something that
Glacial silt, John, glacial.
Yep.
glacial silt, yeah.
The other
What
thing,
what we'll do is we'll put that down on the next section that we have, and down below, we have a thing called what to do before and after the trip.
Yes.
So let's talk about
Right.
that one again, please.
because
Absolutely.
the other one is stretching your line.
Yes, that is part of being on the water, stretching your line, and everybody has their own favorite methods to do it. I just stretch it across my chest. Other people like to have somebody else hold it and stretch the first 30, 40 feet. It does help. The modern textured lines tend to be dirty. He's right about that. Brian is a font of information. He just said the modern textured lines tend to get dirtier faster and need more frequent cleaning. He is correct because that texture will grab the dirt and the algae and the film on the top of the water. He's right. It does grab it. I've got
And-
2 textured lines that I absolutely love, but they do take cleaning.
And Puck, another reason to clean your line is fish have very sensitive smell. And if you're fishing in a lake or in the bay when there's not water movement, as you pull your dirty line through the water, you're leaving a scent trail, which means that the fish comes up, is attracted to your fly, but comes up into that scent trail, it will sometimes turn them off.
There you go. Good.
Always
point.
clean your line and clean it with something that's not going to have a smell. I had one guy tell me, oh, if you want your lines to last longer, clean it with a UV cleaner, like you do your dashboard of your car. And I'm going, no, don't do that.
No.
What?
Ivory soap.
What are
The-
the thoughts on Real Magic? I know John Purcell used to use that on his lines and reels. Anybody else
Well,
use it?
It's very simple. You smell it and you taste it. If it smells bad or it tastes bad, don't put it on your fly line.
Ivory soap.
I found
Soap, not detergent.
100% organic soap with geese oil in it online.
What is it?
That's what I use to clean my hands and my fly lines.
What is
Sorry,
it again?
Ron, you broke up there for a second. What is it?
It's an all natural soap with anise oil in it. Anise oil is a known attractant for fish. So not only are you cleaning off the grunge, but you're putting a fish attractor on your fly line.
And you're saying
I also-
anise, ANISE, anise?
Correct, anise.
Licorice.
It's
Yeah.
a plant, correct. That's what they make licorice from. The other thing about fly line is the taper of the fly line. Usually a shorter taper will turn over bigger flies easier. If you're fishing with small flies or trout flies, you want a longer taper, you get a better presentation. That's a rule.
Yeah, and that's something that they can get into as they delve into it and start chasing down gear. You know, a good fly line doesn't have to cost you $100. A good usable fly line's $30, $40. And again, a place to get a good used fly line in decent shape is the auction. And for folks who don't need it anymore, I've given a few fly lines away to beginners myself.
What about cleaning your rod? What do you put on your rod?
Yeah. Clean your rod. What do you clean your rod with?
Yeah, I used to, like when I clean my line, I just wash it off. If I want to clean it, I dishwater and dish, just light solution.
When I was in Pennsylvania, we had an issue with every time you go fishing in the wintertime for trout, your eyes would ice up.
Yep.
I mean, ice up so badly that you couldn't cast nothing. So I learned to clean my fly rods with Pledge, the stuff you use on furniture.
Yeah, that's
furniture
right.
polish. You spray it down, you wipe it down with a dust-free, lint-free cloth, and you put it away. The water beads up, the ice falls off, and you don't have to worry about it. It's one of those things you don't have to do every trip, but it makes your rods finish last, and it looks good.
No, I called
Definitely
Sage.
doesn't, nothing
I
sticks
went
to it.
Sage. I called Sage one day, and when I had some time, and asked them what to clean it with or what to put on it. And that's what they said. They just said furniture polish. I said, what
There you
kind?
go.
He said
There you
any
go.
kind. But I will say one thing, some of those rods look nice and you don't want to rub them too hard. You'll rub the you know, they've got wording on them. You don't want to rub that off.
That's right.
But
And I use flour sack towels, guys. My wife uses them in the kitchen. When she's done with them, I cut them in quarters, and I keep them everywhere, in the go bag, in the kayak, all over the place. So the little flour sack towels, what are they? $10 for 12 at one of the discount stores. And when you get done with them in the kitchen, they get too stained, they get too many holes. Put them in the fishing bag.
the microfiber is good if you're picky about it, because
Microfibers will hold stuff. You can't get stuff out of microfiber. You use them half a dozen times, and they get tacky. They hold stuff.
Oh,
just my opinion.
Yeah, a terry cloth towel works better for me, especially in cold water. When you get fish slime on after you caught a fish, and you want to, your hands are cold and wet, that absorbs the water a lot quicker.
I agree with you. For cold water, for certain applications, I can see where terry cloth would be better than my my flour sack towels. Agreed.
When you're in a bind, when you're in a bind and you don't have all that, toilet paper works very well.
All right.
What I do is have my wife keep all her old flour sack cloths, and after I get through washing them, I'll use those. They're very absorbent, very smooth, and they're there. And if you want to take take one in your bag on the boat with you, just fold it up, stick it in a sandwich size Ziploc and seal it up, and it'll keep it dry.
There you go.
Go back to rods. Go back to rods.
All right. So,
well, to go back to rods, another good thing to do is to wax your ferrules, especially in salt water. It allows you to take rods apart easily. But if salt water, my experience, if salt water gets in the ferrules and dries, it's almost like super glue, and it becomes very hard to take your rods apart.
And if you
not just that, but the wax will keep the ferrules from backing out. I've broke 2 rods because my ferrules backed out, and on a back cast loading the rod, they just snapped right off the ferrule.
I have also broken 2 rods with the ferrules breaking.
So talking about here, guys, beeswax or paraffin
or your nose.
Yeah, even the wax off your nose.
That's not wax. It's
oil.
It's not
boogers.
So you can get, it needs to be a soft wax. You can get it at Orvis, comes in a little green case, or you can use candle wax from like birthday candles. That's usually pretty soft.
Renzetti also makes a ferrule wax
for 25.
There's also Puck was talking about fishing in the north and rods icing up. There's actually a wax made by Black Swan that for keeping ice off your guides that works well for ferrule wax too.
Okay. On this last trip, we were just at the South Llano River. I had one rod that I kept using, and one of the ferrules continued to let go. The other ferrule, I got finished fishing and I couldn't get it apart. So one would be one type of wax and one would be another type of wax. You can't, they don't, it's not a one fits all situation.
Yeah, you don't want a heavy wax on your ferrules. You don't want a heavy wax because
no, not at all. Not at all.
Sure.
All right. So are we down to flies to get started?
We're down on flies, and then we've got a couple more deals. So if you had to give 5 flies for a beginner, we do 5 saltwater, 5 freshwater.
Clinkhammer.
Woolly booger.
Yellow spider.
Louser minnow.
Redfish crack.
Okay, let's start freshwater so everybody can do it. So yellow spider, clouser,
woolly
booger, woolly worm, both good.
Clinkhammer.
Pale morning dun in a size 22.
And a prince nymph.
A what?
A nymph. A prince nymph.
Prince nymph. Your trout.
Yeah, I agree there.
Okay.
And nobody agrees on clinkhammer. Come on, it's the best fly in.
And you got to have the San Juan worm or the squirmy wormy thrown in there, guys, and a mop fly just to piss off the purist.
One
Right.
thing I
A
might
mop fly
add,
won the Sunfish Spectacular, so no.
Yes, it
No.
did.
hey, Eric,
Yes.
in freshwater, keep in mind, you've got warm water and you've got cold water.
Yes.
So you're gonna have two different, you're gonna have to come up with 10 flies there.
So
And you got wet and dry and nymphs. So
anyway, there's plenty of options. You know, just talk with the
best
people that are
way
going in the
I
area.
think to do that
Get
for
some small
freshwater is go
poppers.
fishing with somebody that fishes the water.
Call your local fly shop.
Yeah.
That's a
Exactly.
good point, John.
Yeah.
You know,
Or
if
if
you're
you
going
go
with
over
a
to
guide,
Creek,
talk
you go
to
by
them.
living water.
by the
Yep.
way, if you want to get started on and you have no flies, right now, I don't know why it is, but when you go on some of the websites, there are incredible deals on packs of 12 and 24 flies. I guess people have been making them during COVID, and there's an oversupply, so you can get 20, 30 flies for freshwater for $10.
Oh
online.
man, that's good. That's a good thing to think about. I never looked at that. I tie my own, so I don't.
Yeah,
know,
they
but
usually have
it
packs.
makes sense.
They have packs of flies, so they'll have a set of wet flies or a set of nymphs. You know.
Yep. Now, seriously, guys, if you want to find out what flies work, go fishing with somebody that is familiar with the water, and they usually will carry the flies that work. Like I go down to Damon all the time. I know what works down there. I've been to South Atlanta often enough. I know what works for me there. And on the South Atlanta trip, it was not what fly works. It was what other fly works. So we were experimenting on that water because we were having so much fun. But the flies to get started in freshwater, go fishing with somebody. If you're not familiar with the water, go fishing with somebody that you know that knows the water.
So same thing, saltwater.
Yep.
Same thing, saltwater in this area. So in the
Let's
interest
get
of
cracking.
time, yes, in the interest of time, we'll go
Next
to our
slide.
next slide. It's hard carousing, y'all.
I know,
Okay.
I know.
So strategies for fly fishing.
Yes.
So some of the questions that you need to think about is, are you familiar with the area you're fishing? And if you're not, do you go with a guide or do you go with somebody that does know it? And where to
Buy a
fish?
book. You can buy a book. There are so many books out there that are absolute font of knowledge. Think about what Rob did on when he told us about fishing that state park. He wrote a whole book on fishing that state park and gave all the strategies behind it. So if you want to just walk in fish, he's got the book for it. Fishing the Texas coast. How many books we got for that? 20, 30, 40 books on how to fish the Texas coast? Fishing the hill country. Kevin Hutchinson's got a book.
I'd recommend the Chuck Skates and Phil Shook for fly fishing the Texas coast.
There you go. There's books out there, guys. And that's how you familiarize yourself before you even wet a line or touch a piece of equipment. Find out what's out there and how to use what's out there. Seriously.
If you hire a guide the first time, you don't need to take anything with you. You go out there and find out what's going on.
That's true, but you need to talk to your guide. That's part of communications. If you just show up at the dock expecting the guide to supply everything, you're going to be disappointed.
Well, you got to know that. Yeah.
That's part of the communications with your guide. That's also part of, are you familiar with the fishery? What does the guide expect you to do? The guide that I have in Destin, Florida is completely different from the guide that I have in the hill country or on the Texas coast. They do things differently. They just do. The guide up in Wyoming is not going to be the same as the guide down here in the Texas coast. So you have to talk to your guide. You have to be familiar with what he's expecting and then what you're expecting from him.
But they all have one thing in common, Puck. They all have one thing in common, and that is they know the fishery. And so if you're going down for your first time and you're not sure, the wisest move is to hire a guide.
I agree.
I agree. And after that, if you want to go solo, that's fine. But they know where to go. They'll tell you. Just talk to them. They'll tell you.
Now you say go solo, Alex, but I'm gonna give a piece of advice just based off of personal experience. If you go down to the Gulf Coast or you go down to the Texas coast, always go with at least one partner. Go with a small group, minimum of 2, for safety's sake. We had one guy that had to get rescued by the Coast Guard a few years ago, Gus. He got separated from us. Don't be that guy.
Yeah, fair enough. For saltwater,
So
yeah.
familiarize yourself with the fishery. By doing so, talk to a guide. Make sure you communicate with your guide. Read some books. Look on the internet. Look at what the clubs are posting. Find out what's out there before you pick up the first piece of equipment or buy the first fly. There's information available, and if you don't know, sit down with an old salt, like some of the guys on this panel here that have been down in Texas all their life. I'm not originally from Texas. I just got here as quick as I could.
So yeah, there's a question somebody had up here. You know, how often should you go with a guide, or how often do you?
A year. Once to twice a year minimum, just to learn the waters. Things change. That's my opinion.
Yeah, new location.
New location, definitely. You know, if I was going down to Laguna Madre, I'd hire a guide in a heartbeat because I don't know that water at all.
But if you go with a guide one day, don't be sitting in that same hole the next day.
True.
By yourself.
That's true. Yep, that's just rude. Because he makes his money taking people those holes. You're just down there having fun. It's part of etiquette. It's part of respect. Where to fish. There's different strategies on this. My personal strategy is I love to pick up a map or take and look on Google Earth and take a look at the area that I'm thinking about fishing. And then I find out where I can launch my kayak or go with a boat and keep going until I find and strategize where I want to go. Then I have to look at the tides and the wind and the weather. If you don't take into consideration the Texas tides, winds, and weather, you are going to have a rough time in Texas, not just on the coast, guys. There are shorelines on some of our state parks you can't fish with a north wind. So you take a look. My strategy is map spot, tides, winds, weather, and then go with a small group.
And also on Google now, you can go back and take photos of historical photos of the same place. So you can see when tides out or water is low in lakes and find out where all the creeks are and peninsulas and stuff that are submerged. It's pretty interesting.
Exactly. And when I mentioned tides, wind, and weather, there's also multiple websites that you can find the water levels of our rivers. Because one of my favorite rivers, I love to fish it when it's at 100 to 300 CFS. I checked this morning, it's at 26,000. I'm not wasting the 4-hour drive to go sit and watch water flow.
Just need a bigger fly.
Yeah, exactly. Like the size of a Volkswagen Beetle.
Well, almost every river system has on their website has hydromet data, and it'll tell you give you the flood stage as well as the flow. And
exactly. And before we went to the South Llano, we actually checked, and we were looking at about almost 2-point-something odd inches higher than what it was last year, which was perfect for us.
So what if you're fishing on the coast and you've got a boat, not a kayak, but a boat, and mindful of
a map spot, and you still do the wind, weather, and the tides, because the tides will tell you how far back into the marsh you can get and when you have to leave.
Okay.
But be cognizant of the direction.
The water
lapping. It'll tell you what shoreline to fish.
Doesn't the water lapping against the boat? Probably the south shoreline on one of the bays.
The south shoreline on one of the bays, you're going to want a south. You're going to want the shoreline to protect you from the wind.
Yeah.
Because honestly, certain boats have a bad hull slap.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
Some boats are worse than others. If you can find yourself protected shoreline, like we go down here to call it Galveston. Galveston State Park is a prime example of a kayak and boat sort of friendly place. You launch out of there and you're protected from our predominant wind, which is southeast. Our predominant wind direction is southeast. You can fish that entire shoreline all day with no issues in the middle of the summer and be fairly protected from the wind. The wind shifts out of the north, that shoreline turns to mud.
Yeah.
Also be cognizant of, like Fuck was saying, the direction of the wind. I've gone out, tried to fish a tide movement. The wind was blowing the opposite way the tide was going, and the wind was more powerful than the tide. So I thought I was going to be an incoming tide. It turned out the water was going out, completely
Being
messed
blown
up the plan for fishing. So
Being
sometimes
blown
the
out.
wind is the tide.
Well, one thing
Yeah.
you've got to keep in mind, the Texas coast basically has the bank lays in 3 different directions. The upper coast, your prevailing wind is usually more of an easterly. The middle coast, you've got flow from the upper coast as well as the lower coast. So you can have either a southeast or southwest prevailing wind. And as you get farther on down the coast, you'll have more of a southerly flow to your wind. So it's things like that to keep in mind. Also, the fact that if you're in and around Baffin Bay and upper and lower Laguna, there are certain areas that only get 2 tides a year.
That's true.
You know, so you're going to, if you happen to get it on the high cycle, it's going to be 6 to 8 inches higher than it will be on the low cycle.
And another thing you have to be cognizant about is actual tide level, not predicted tide level. Like if you were going this weekend, right now, tides are running 1.5 foot over predicted. In the middle coast, they're at 2.5 feet. So if you were wanting to sight fish and you heard, oh, well, it's ankle deep water, well, it's going to be thigh deep now. And it's going to be
another
dirty.
thing and he makes another point here. Scott Fossum made a point about the water being high. What that means for somebody like us that has skinny water boats or kayaks, that means all your favorite fishing spots are now accessible by the bigger boats and the more people. You're not getting away from the crowds this weekend. Good luck.
I
And
am.
one of the questions I see here is, are you fishing alone or with a partner? If you are fishing alone, make sure you have a way to communicate back. Make sure you have a cell phone that has signal, VHF radio, or one of those satellite gadgets
Enreach.
to send messages.
Enreach.
That's what I have. I have a Garmin, but I
And,
used to have a spot.
and before you leave the dock, on the front of your car, on the dashboard, leave a float plan if you're going by
Not a
yourself.
bad idea. Yep. Good point. Good
Good
plan.
idea.
Let somebody know where you're going if you're going alone. My
And
personal advice: don't go alone.
And you can basically find templates for float plans on the internet. I know of about a half dozen of them that are out there. So all you have to do is just fill in the blanks.
You got it. But let somebody know where you're going. Doesn't matter who. Somebody you trust. Let them know where you're going. Because if you're going too long, like our one friend was, the Coast Guard went and got him. So yeah, it was a bad day for him. And I
Okay.
still teach that individual routinely.
That plus the fact that this time of year, coming up in the summer months, you may have a forecast that winds south-southeast at 8 to 10 miles an hour with a chance of afternoon thunder showers. Well, those thunder showers can get pretty damn exciting in a hurry. And you may be fishing along a shoreline, a squall line pops up, blows in. The next thing you know, you're completely across on the other side of the bay.
That's fact. All right, Eric, how are we doing on time?
We are at 8:08, so we're in good shape.
Not bad.
So, for being in the Texas Gulf Coast area, we're blessed to have salt water and fresh water. Where are some of your favorite places to fish locally? So start with the freshwater person.
Ponds
I
and
love
Puck
the South Lino
subdivision.
River and the subdivisions. Yeah, walking distance. The local ponds are always fun.
Texas
Puck, Curtis Groves.
got a plethora of reservoirs and public lakes.
Yes.
You can get a lot of information off the Parks and Wildlife site as far as some of the lakes around the parks. But you can also There are a lot of fishing sites, but a great source of locations is go to the FFI website, find the different clubs listed in the areas that you're going to go, and look at their websites and what they have. A lot of them will list some of the rivers and some of the lakes and some of the streams that are available up there.
And when it says
Eric,
fish local,
there's a
guys,
couple-
we're
there's a-
talking Houston area, there's all kinds of places to go. Seriously. The local ponds in your neighborhoods are probably a good place to start. And I actually use the local ponds as my casting practice for accuracy because I cast to turtle heads. Turtle heads are moving, they're small targets, and you know when you hit them.
So
Hey,
Eric, if
Puck,
you-
Curtis Crowe sent me a picture yesterday of an 8-pound bass he caught in Sugar Land in Crescent Lake on his
Oh,
4-weight fly rod.
That's
So yeah,
great.
the local ponds can be very good fishing.
So I found a little pond where I bring the kids up on just North Gessner. I'd never heard of it. And you can roll cast, and there's very few people. There's a few trees around, and we almost every cast we're catching tilapia or brim or bass. It was amazing. And been up there 3 or 4 times. It's been fantastic. And it's tiny. And nobody knows about it. There's a children's playground around the corner, and it's great.
Wasn't that many years ago we used to fish White Oak Bayou. The bayous here in town certainly have fish.
Yeah, we had outings there. Mike Graham used to lead outings to
Yeah, I went to White Oak Bayou a month ago, Michael.
Just watch out for the snakes.
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge.
Yeah.
But the one thing you have to be careful about are the lakes inside some of these HOAs.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There are some of them that can be that are set up as they're retaining ponds for they're not controlled by, and they might be a boundary around it of 5 or 6 feet. But some of those people think that they own it. Some of them, the HOAs do own it and control it. So make sure you don't get yourself in a trespassing situation.
Yeah, but you've got a fly rod which is 9 foot long and a fly on the end of it. Just keep casting further and further away from it, and then you'll run away.
Another thing to think about your HOAs, your neighborhood ponds, guys, is don't take those fish home to eat because you don't know what they're throwing in there for weed control, pest control, whatever.
Exactly.
Like we still have an issue here at our local ones, copper sulfate. I absolutely detest copper sulfate as weed control, but they're still using that crap.
So just a plug for, the state parks have, I think, pretty dang good lakes at Lake Bastrop, even, Fayette, Lake Fayette, Huntsville. Steve Edwards and I went to Columbus River and floated right there out of Bastrop, a very easy fisherman's wharf right there downtown Bastrop, and floated down 6 miles, lots of bass there, not that many people. So it's a little bit further out from Houston, but and it requires a little more stuff like boats and kayaks or something, but an hour and a half away, and good fishing in all of them.
Yep, and all those are local places, guys. For saltwater, I like San Luis Pass because I can go out to the pass, go out a little ways, go left, and I'm at that huge sandbar, and I drag my kayak behind me and sight fish on that sandbar literally all day and have fun and catch fish. People have seen me do it.
With that being said, the one thing that you've got to be very careful about along the Texas coast are undertows.
Yeah.
And San Luis Pass historically is one of the worst.
Yep.
Yes.
There was also an incident this weekend, kind of going along with the weather, where a boat capsized, put 5 people in the water. 2 of them they found yesterday evening. One of them, the tides and current had carried it all the way. This was right, they capsized right there at Mosquito Island off the Texas City Dike. Well, one of the bodies was found over by 45 there at Jones Lake.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, man, another one of those things about staying in communications, float plans, and safety gear.
Don't go out when it's blowing a gale.
What
Yeah,
causes those boats
yeah.
to turn over? I hear a lot about accidents at San Luis Pass, both boats and weight, but
It typically has to do with pilot inexperience or boater inexperience. And
Wow.
the currents at San Luis Pass are treacherous. I've been in out there with a kayak, and I took the wrong kayak that day. I decided the waters were calm. I was going to go past the bridge. I lasted about 100 yards and I turned around. I was not by myself, but still, it was kind of hairy because the currents were going one way, the wind was going the other, and it was treacherous for me that day. I can only imagine what it would be like for an inexperienced boater under power.
And the same thing goes for the same thing goes for people wade fishing the surf. You know, it might be slick calm, but on top, but you don't know what's going on the bottom. And
True.
There are a lot of there's a lot of information out there on the internet as far as how to react when you get caught in a underlying current. One of which is to remain calm.
Yep.
But
All right. So where to fish locally? We've covered that one fairly well. Favorite
Right.
flies? We can beat that one to death.
Yeah, I think we
Do you
did
want
it.
to just compile a list?
Yeah, we can put a list out on the website. I mean, everybody's got their favorites. I think it's talk to the people in the area for the species that you're after.
Piper, I use the inflatable ones. I use the manual. However, there are ones out there that are automatic. And the automatics you can put to manual. The issue with the automatics is once that little tablet gets wet, and if it's on automatic, it's going to pop. We can talk to a
Not
couple of
one
people
word,
about that.
Puck. Not
Okay,
one word,
didn't
Puck.
mention your name, Q. Did not say it happened to you. But I use a manual because I'm typically in a kayak and I can yank it, no issues, no problems. But it works great. And when you pop it, you're going to float. I've seen the automatics inflate, and they float very, very well. And they're very comfortable. And in the summertime, I actually was stopped at Bass Pro Shop as I was walking out because I was wearing mine. It was a Bass Pro Shop, and I was wearing it out, and they thought I was stealing it until they saw the stain on it, and then they laughed at me and let me go because I forgot I was wearing it. Very comfortable, very cool. I'd highly recommend them. The only life jacket that works is the one you wear.
Right. Look, I had an issue with the Bass Pro make of those when I was on the Guadalupe a couple of years ago. It was a manual, and one half of it just inflated while I was waiting, and so it forced my neck back to the point where I had to cut it with my knife in order for me to get to actually. It nearly forced me into the water. It was pretty dangerous. So I went back to Bass Pro.
Manufacturer defect. That's
I
something
told them,
that's
and
not
it
supposed
took
to
me
happen.
3 weeks for them to accept that it had malfunctioned, even though it was, you could see what had happened. So they eventually gave me my money back, and I bought something else. So I wouldn't recommend those.
One point about inflatables is for them to actually count as a PFD, you actually have to be wearing them. You cannot just have them in the boat.
That is correct.
Where is
Type 5
that?
has to be one.
Where is
John's asked us if we can open up to questions, see if the audience has questions. I've been reading the chat as we've been going along. That's how the inflatable discussion came about. Folks, if you have questions, the chat room is perfectly open. And I want to cover, we're going to skip over favorite flies. What kind of knot for tippet to fly? My personal opinion, one you can tie in the dark with your eyes closed.
Yep.
Because you're going to be tying 1,000 times the same knot, the one that works for you, that you can tie in the dark with your eyes closed. Now,
What
you're going to
about
have
the
some people
difference?
argue about that.
Puck, what about the difference between, because there's a lot of talk about people using loop knots because the fly has more mobility versus a stiff knot like a blood knot?
Well, a lot of folks love loop knots for things that like deceivers, clousers, minnow imitators, things that's going to require some action. And it's a personal choice, guys. If you use a light enough tippet, it's still going to dance. But if you use a 25-pound tippet on a size 6,
Yep.
Leadfish
I'm
crack,
just logging
you're
off.
gonna need a loop.
Well, whatever you use, learn how to tie it properly and cinch it up properly. That's the key. If you have any slip in your knot, it's gonna bust.
And always
You
wet
got
it
it.
if you're on fluorocarbon.
What's that now?
Always wet your knot when you're on fluorocarbon.
And
Well, you
how
can
do
do
you
that.
wet your knot?
You should do that on all your monofilaments.
Yep.
Yep. How do you wet your knots, guys?
Spit on it.
Spit on it.
Yeah,
Keep-
dip it in
I
the
keep a
water.
little
You're already
bowl
in
of
the
water right there.
Dip in the water. You're already on the water, guys. Dip the damn thing in the water. You got all that water available. I'm not putting that crap in my mouth. Where's that tippet been? We're talking about, what is that? What is the name of that? Vibrio? No. What is the name of that damn disease? Not the Vibrio.
Var, var,
Getting the
var
fresh water.
something.
Yeah.
All right, moving right along.
You got it.
Okay, so we touched on part of this, but before and after the trip, what do you do off the water? So discussion earlier was, how do you take care of your fly line? How do you clean your rods? So, you know, the maintenance on your equipment. So rods, we already talked about the fly line, cleaning it, putting the,
Well, one thing about the fly line is you don't have to clean it after every trip. If you're cleaning it, if you're fishing in fairly clean conditions, you don't, especially if you're going to be fishing the next day, there's no real need to, you know, you can clean everything off with a spritz of water or get some Saltex on it, but you don't have to strip your line down and wash it and dress it day after day.
And guys, you say this preparing packing for a trip. One of the tips or tricks that I use is I have a packing list. And as I learn, I add and remove things from my packing list because I know me, I'm going to forget something if I'm going to remind this faulty old brain of mine. So find what works for you, put it down somewhere, either write it on a clipboard, write it on a piece of paper, put it in a spreadsheet. I don't care, but keep a record of what works for you on the preparing and the packing. Because this weekend, I forgot one thing, the set of clothes to drive home in. So I got to drive home in the stinky clothes that I fished all Sunday morning in. My wife was not happy with me. And I checked the packing list and it did say 4 sets of clothes. Dumb me, didn't follow my own packing list. Packing lists are great. If you're walking to a neighborhood pond, you got what? 4 items, your rod, your flies, and a couple of tools. You're done. You're going on a kayak trip, you've got a few more things. You're going an overnight camping trip, even more. So keep in mind that the gear changes, and with the gear change, you need a different packing list.
Pins, good example.
Oh my God, pins, we look like a gypsy caravan, don't we?
And you don't have to keep everything on the list. You can get the list and say, I'm not taking that on this trip. Leave it home.
That's true, but you'll think
Right.
about it. But you'll think about it. Do I need it? Do I not need it? True. You're right. You're exactly right, Scott. So I'd recommend a list. Use what works for you. And if you don't have a list and you want a list, ask somebody that's been on the trip before. Say, hey, you got a packing list? I've got a few of them.
So one of the things that, you know, we don't talk about a lot, we talk about the gear, we talk about the flies, casting practice. Turtles, but you know, if you don't practice, the only time you cast is when you get out on the water, you're missing out.
But guys, you have to practice with a purpose. You say, today I want to do this, not I'm going to go out there and sling the line around for a couple hours and make me a better caster. No, you go out and say, I want to work on accuracy. I want to work on a steeple cast. I want to work on a curve cast. I want to work on this today. Practice with a purpose. Just don't go out and grab a fly rod. Grab a target.
So we have some wonderful casting instructors in this club, and there's plenty of opportunities, as people have mentioned. The parks in the area, great place to practice roll casting. If you're working from home, it's a great way to take a break for 10 minutes, take the fly rod outside. My neighbors think I'm crazy during COVID because I'll be out there with a fly rod, you know, just casting for 5 or 10 minutes. So
Are these your same neighbors that go out with a shag bag full of golf balls and their 7-iron?
some people do that, but you know, I think they think I'm crazy when I tied the peanut on there trying to catch the squirrel. So,
Casting with a purpose. Casting with a purpose.
you
Can
know,
I
you,
make a couple of points on this one?
Sure.
A couple of questions. If you're going on an overseas trip or an expensive trip and you don't spend weeks practicing your casting or go fishing, you think about the amount of money you're going to spend on that trip, and then you get out in the water the first day and you can't do anything. So it is so important, especially to even if you've been doing it 30 years, 40 years, practice, especially if you're going for a 3 or 4 day trip where you normally don't go for 3 or 4 days. You're going to get fatigue. You're going to get, I'm doing that myself right now, and it makes a huge difference. The other question I had in relation to casting practices, the club has those rings, where for accuracy, where you can place them. Where's the best place to buy some of those?
Academy.
What are you talking about?
Academy, Walmart.
Oh, they have those?
They're just hula hoops.
Yeah, but they're big ones, right? The only ones I can find are big.
They're big ones.
They're huge.
Academy.
I'm trying to get small ones.
Hey,
They're
Alec.
more accurate.
Alec, go to Academy and buy some of those small soccer cones.
That's true. Yep. That's true.
I have an antifreeze bottle from my truck, and I cut a square out of the side of it. I lay it on the ground and try to put the fly in the square.
That's not a bad idea either. Now, another thing to think about, guys, you say casting practice. Now, the casting practice, it's going to wear you out. You're going to be using muscles that you don't always use all the time until you get used to it. But what happens when you go on one of these 3, 4, 5 day trips and you can't physically do what's required? You can't stand for 4 hours. You can't run down the beach. You can't climb the hill. You can't make the trip through the mountains. You got to consider what trip you're going on as to what physical limitations or what physical abilities you need. If you can't do the walk, or you can't do the run, or you can't do the standing, you can't do the pulling, you may want to start planning ahead of time, getting yourself into shape to be able to go on your trip.
Absolutely.
So one other thing to think about, and Alec mentioned that if you're doing a big trip where you maybe have to cast a different way than you have before, like say you're going to go saltwater, you need to work on your distance casting. That's a perfect opportunity to take a lesson before you go.
Yep.
Somebody can do some tune-ups for you.
Guys, practice against the wind. When I say practice with a purpose, the wind in Texas always blows somewhere. If you practice against the wind at your local pond with your saltwater outfit, it'll give you a heads up when it gets to the saltwater and the wind's blowing and you've got a target that you want to hit. Practice with a purpose.
If you're also practicing, if you're also going on a trip with a different rod than you normally cast with, like instead of an 8-weight for redfish, if you're going to go after tarpon or something like that, a 12-weight will wear your ass out pretty quick.
You're speaking from experience there, Scott.
Yeah, and so you just gotta get after it, do it for 2 or 3 months. I know that sounds like crazy, but when you spend a lot of money and you go there and you're on the front of the boat and you can't cast 25 feet,
that's embarrassing.
It's a bad.
So what are good exercises for fly fishing? Like if I go skiing, they tell you to work on your core and to do a lot of squats, for example. But surprisingly, building up your core is really important to be able to ski for the whole day, more so than leg strength. What's good for fly fishing? Should you be able to jog 5 miles or lift bench press 200 pounds or what?
You should be able to do a repetitive motion again and again for multiple hours. And the repetitive motion, you don't want to do damage to yourself by causing an injury. Yeah, we have people that cast so hard they give themselves tennis elbow.
So what about doing backstroke, swimming backstroke, for example?
So if you look on the internet, there's lots of things. I just pulled up something.
Yeah, he's got
fly
it up right
fishing.
now.
So Eric, this is John. If you remember last year when we were still having meetings.
Yeah, we had a lady come in.
We had a lady come in and do a really good job of using resistance bands, if I remember right, and
That
showing.
was Ron, that was Ron's physical therapist.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she's an expert physical
I've got one
therapist.
right here that I use.
And we had,
Yeah, I don't know if you can post that on the web, Puck, but it's a set of exercises you use for your upper body to get yourself in shape for fly casting. And this is a professional who did this. She's the best physical therapist I've ever used. So I highly recommend following what she gave us.
I think it is posted on our website, if I remember that.
It is. I looked it up about a month ago.
Oh, there you go.
So
That
I
reason.
use for endurance, I bicycle and I swim. I can't, because I have messed up knees, I can't run anymore. So yeah, if you're trying to build up your endurance, build your wind, bicycling and especially swimming is very good for you in preparation of fly fishing.
And back to echo what Scott was saying, if you're going to be casting a big rod, and I'll define big as 10 and up weight, you have the mass of the rod, you have the mass of the reel, the mass of the line, the mass of the backing. It's a couple pounds. It will feel entirely different. If you just think you can go and switch from your 8 weight to a 10, 11, 12, or 14 and cast effectively, you're kidding yourself. It will
So
take
the routine,
a while to get your muscle strength and muscle memory. So go out and practice it. Go catch bass with a 12 weight. Put some huge bass poppers on, the kind that you avoided using with your 8 weight, and cast them with your 12.
You should also go get a lesson from somebody who knows what they're doing with that kind of rod, because the mechanics are completely different. There's all kinds of crap you can get away with an 8 weight that you just simply cannot do with a 10, 11, or 12, or you'll screw up your shoulder.
And can I interject on this casting practice, guys, about line control? I know we didn't put it on here, probably because of a reason. But what do you do with the line when you're pulling it in, when you're doing the retrieve? You throw it on the boat, you throw it in the stripping basket, you throw it on the ground. One of my pet peeves is watching people stand on their own line. I've done it. That's why it's a pet peeve of mine. You want to talk about short cast, you go to sling 60 feet, you sling 16, because the rest of it's under your foot. Part of casting practice.
Yeah, on a good rod, all you got to do is just tap it. I've broken one where you just touch it, and it's a micro crack, and I have seen that happen.
Yep.
You just knock two rods together, or grab them up in your hand and they hit each other. That can go downhill fast.
Clouser will destroy a rod in a heartbeat. All it takes is one good hit. But anyway, casting practice, line control. When you're in a boat, that's not the time that you want to take and learn what to do with your line. Figure out what you're going to do with your line before you spend all that money. Seriously.
And if you're going on a trip and you'll have to buy a rod for the trip, a 12 weight, case in point, not all 12 weights are made the same.
Correct.
And if you're used to casting a 6 or an 8 weight, there's a hell of a lot of difference in there, as is a hell of a lot of difference in casting a 12 weight floating line and a 12 weight full sink line.
Yes.
Where I go down in the Yucatan, we're casting a 500 grain full sink, and that's not really casting, it's more lobbing, but there's still an art to it.
Yep.
So the feel of those rods is different. When I'm getting ready to go to Belize, I take a 6, a 9, and 11 with me. So when I practice, I will set those 3 rods down and without looking, pick one up and start to cast it without knowing what weight it is, so that I can feel what it is when I first start casting, then adjust my casting stroke accordingly. That's the level of muscle memory you need to be successful in casting if you're going to be using a wide range of rods in a casting situation.
Yeah. Well, on the South Lano, I was using a 1 and a 3. I never even went as high as a 5. And the difference between a 1 and a 3, it doesn't sound like much, but I'm here to tell you, muscle memory for a 1 and muscle memory for a 3, completely different, guys. They're not heavy, they're not strong, they're not hard to use. But if you're using a 1 weight all day, then you pick up a 3, it feels like a broomstick.
Buck, when it comes to you said line control by your feet. So
Yep.
I bought a product. I just put it on there. A minimalist stripper basket that looks like a baseball hat if you put it on your head, and it is the best thing I have ever purchased in my entire life because I hate stripping baskets. But it's just a series of plastic little flexible rods, and you can put it down the side, and when you strip, it automatically lays on there, and it has completely changed the way I'm able to cast and recover a line much quicker. Makes a huge
And you guys,
difference.
some of you guys have actually been on a saltwater boat with me. You see what I do for line control. I don't throw it on the boat, and I don't step on it, and I don't use a stripping basket. I actually use my fingers.
Yeah.
I saw it on the web, and I practiced it for a few years, and for me it works. But it takes some self-discipline to be able to use that method. So whatever works for you for line control to keep that line off the ground, off the boat, out of the water, where you can sling it out for the next cast. Because how much time do you have to react on the front of a boat or in the surf to a cruising fish? Half a second, 2 seconds, never more than 3. That's how long you've got to get your fly in the water and in front of that fish. Very short time. If you're standing on your line and doing the dance, you've lost him.
And if you have to do the dance, do it barefoot.
Yeah, that's a good point too. That's a good point. I got on somebody's boat, took my boots, never put them on. I wore socks all day, and I'm glad I did. So it worked.
Well, you don't want to
Shall we get into
go.
maintenance?
You don't want to go barefoot on a boat because you get your tops of your feet.
Wear socks.
Yeah, I'm just saying you don't want to go barefoot.
Yeah, but I typically wear socks in the summertime just because I don't want the tops of my feet burnt, and I'm always wearing sandals. Sandals with socks, okay. Sun protection is what I'm going to call it, okay?
Chris, what do you wear?
I normally wear shoes and socks. The main reason is whether you believe it or not, at the end of the day, wearing socks and along with my shoes, my feet are a hell of a lot more relaxed than they would be going barefooted inside the shoes or standing on the deck barefooted.
That's true too.
And I've spent many a day, standing and trolling 12-hour days in the back of a boat, and I've got a lot of sore feet and sore heels that I've experienced from it.
Yep. Can we get it? Should we get into maintenance now? I know what time it is.
We need to do a quick maintenance and then we'll wrap up in 5 minutes.
You betcha. Maintenance, what should you do? If my general rule for hunting and fishing is, one, you take care of your animals, your horses or your dogs or whatever you take with you, because they can't or won't or they can't take care of themselves. You have to take care of them. The next thing you take care of is your game, your fish or your game. You clean, you prepare, you get them taken care of. You get that done with. The third thing you take care of is your gear. You wash it, you maintain it, you knock all the grease off of it, you get it ready for the next day, because if you don't, you're not going to have it to be able to use again. The last thing you take care of is you. You feed yourself, you rest yourself, you get ready to go again. This is either at camp or back at home. So you take care of your animals, your game, your gear, and your last. You've got to remember to take care of you also, or you're not going to be able to go again. Now, what do you do with your fly fishing gear? That's the topic that we really should explore for the next 5 to 10 minutes. Saltwater requires a different regimen than freshwater. Freshwater, get it dry, put it away, get it clean every now and then. Saltwater, rinse it every day. That's what I do. Chris, you use a lot more saltwater than I do.
But what about that? I mean, I talked to somebody in Fishing Tackle Unlimited last year, and they swore by a product that they use. Said you have to use this every time in salt water. It's some over-the-counter. I don't know what it is. Salt.
Yeah, it's that blue liquid. That stuff works great, but as far as what I do at the end of a day, first it's going to depend a lot whether I've submersed my reel.
Yeah.
If I've submersed my reel, and I'm going to take it down to the spool and, wipe it out good, make sure that there's no salt water left in and around the bearings. Since most of them have seal bearings, that's not quite as big an issue. But clean the reel out good, rinse the rod off, wipe it off. If I've been fishing in some nasty water, pull the line out into a bucket and wipe it back on the reel clean, rinse it off. As far as the flies, I like to carry a little Tupperware tub, and I'll put all the flies that I've used in that. When I get back, I'll carry them in a Ziploc bag with a piece of foam during the day, because it'll fit in my my vest pocket on my shirt. But when I get back, I'll put them in that Tupperware tub, fill it full of fresh water, and just rinse them off good, and then hang them up to dry. If they need be, I'll maybe hit them with the blow dryer, but that's normally it. And then once they're dry, I'll put them back in the Ziploc bag with the foam.
Hey, Chris, when you say you rinse your reels, do you take them up? Do you actually take it apart? Take the spool?
If I have submersed it, I will take the spool out and just clean it, hit it with a little bit of Saltex or something along that. If it looks like it needs a little bit of oil on the spindles or something, I might hit it with that. But mainly just wiping it down, getting any residual salt water out of there.
Okay, I'd take a different approach than these two gentlemen. I'm a minimalist. So I clean my lines maybe at the most once a year. After a day of saltwater fishing, all my rods have titanium guides. So at the most, I'll spray them down while the reel's still on them, using the hose for probably 15 seconds per rod. And if I don't do it, it's fine. And if I dunk my reel, well, it gets the same 15 minutes wash, and I do not have sealed bearings. The thing I spend the most time is my nippers. I know if I don't wash those, the blades will get dull, and it takes 2 weeks to get them blades replaced. And I make sure and wash all my flies that I used. Typically when I cut off a fly, I'll throw it in my cooler, because the bottom of the cooler is melted ice. And I've never put a saltwater fly wet back into the fly box without washing it. Otherwise the whole box will corrode.
Got it.
So I know some people that once they get through with the day, they put the fly rods in the shower.
Yep.
Let the shower hit them.
If my reel goes in the water, the line goes on this to dry, because I have taken and molded my backing. This is nothing more than a extension cord reel, and I put foam noodles in it to make it a little bit wider. I just reel the fly line up on it to let it dry, and the next day I put it back on the reel. Because if it goes in the water, you're going to have some funk going on if you let it sit that way wet.
Yeah, I mean, you don't ever want to put anything away wet, period.
Agreed.
I mean, even if you were talking about hunting before, you don't want to keep a rifle that's just been sprayed down in the gun case. Wipe it down, make sure you don't have any big dollops of oil or gun grease exposed, where because all that's gonna do is create a problem down the road.
And don't put a wet fly rod in an aluminum rod tube that has an O-ring, because it will not dry in there. It'll pressurize.
You're right. Don't put anything away wet. And Scott, you made an excellent suggestion about when you get done with a fly for the day, saltwater wise, throw it in your cooler. Hell, I do that without even thinking about it. Other people like to throw them in an empty water bottle, but I don't like water bottles. So I throw them in my cooler on the way home. They slosh around and rinse real good. I get them home and I put them on a drying catch and they stay there for days sometimes before I remember to put them away. But yeah, when your flies cost you $5, $10, $12, take care of them. What are you doing there, Chris?
Can you see
Oh,
this
that's
piece?
foam.
I'll
Yeah.
take and cut that about a 1/2 inch thick. And
Yep.
I'll keep that in a Ziploc bag and put my flies on it through the day that I'm using, and keep that in my, because most of the time I'm going to go back to a particular fly that I've already used anyway. And
Okay.
just keep them in there. And like I say, you can, if you're using a heavy duty Ziploc, you can fill it up with that, fill it up with fresh water at the end of the day, zip it closed, shake it around, wash it off good, and then take the piece of foam out and let it dry on your dashboard.
And one thing Scott showed that he didn't actually talk much about is that hat of his was absolutely covered with flies. I guarantee every one of those flies was wet at least once. That's a great way to dry your flies, is stick them in your hat, especially if they're barbless. By the time you go to use them again, they're up there, they're dry. For freshwater, it's an absolutely great way to dry flies.
Yeah.
So we had a question in the chat room about somebody recommended a book related to fishing the Texas coast. Can
By Phil
y'all?
Shook.
Phil Shook.
Phil Shook.
Yeah,
Do you have
Chuck
the handy,
Skates
Ron?
and Chuck Skates and Phil Shook.
Yeah.
Is
By
that the,
fishing the Texas coast.
If you look around at half price books, you might be able to find it there.
It's also on Amazon.
is it
What was
still
the name
being
of it?
sold?
Slowly, can you say it?
Who's got it?
I don't have mine handy.
Well, if you
I
don't
don't
know
either.
the name, it's okay. I'll just look for Bill Shook.
Phil
Phil
Shook.
Shook.
Phil.
Actually, it's Chuck Skates and Phil Shook.
Chuck Gates.
And fly fishing the Texas coast. Scott Breen.
Gates, SCATES.
What I was going to say, one of the things that I do for maintenance after fishing is look at the leader and make sure there's no abrasion, any wind nuts on it.
Wind knots on leaders. That is a major cause of fish loss. Wind knots in leaders. If you don't have wind knots, you're gonna get them.
Replace your tippet every trip and check it during the day. Replace the tippet. Your tippet's going to get shorter as you change flies. But if you get too many wind knots or any wind knots, you should take them out or cut it off.
And
if you,
yep. And I've been using tippet rings because all I change is the tippet. I don't have to keep cutting back the tapered leader. The little tippet rings don't weigh anything, and they're great for subsurface flies or large foam flies. They save so much effort. You just tie to the tippet ring and you're done. And they don't cost much.
Depending on where you're fishing, if you're fishing someplace that's got a bunch of abrasion, like if you get where there's any coral or rocks or things like that. At the end of the day, part of what you're talking about, taking care of the dogs, the equipment, this, that, the other, I just put on a new leader at the end of the day, because
leaders are cheap compared to lost fish.
I don't want to bust off fish. I don't have to worry about it the next day. Just that's part of the preparation for the next day. Put on a new leader.
Yeah, you can do
trip, I take my reel off, and if I have an ice chest with water in it, I just throw it in there, because guaranteed I've been dunking it off and on during the day and don't even know it. So
okay. Alex just shared his stripping basket with us on the chat.
Okay,
guys. Go hit that one up. Take a look. That's the one he likes.
And I hate stripping baskets.
Somebody will post up a link. Yeah, I know, but if somebody would post up the link to Phil's the book that we were talking about, that'd be handy too. That way folks can just click it and go.
Okay, we're coming up at almost 10 till 9, so I think we need to wrap it up. Any other questions or comments from the team?
Eric, can I pass along one?
Who was that?
We can barely hear you, Chris.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. We got to the time of year, we're getting to the time of year where the water's going to be getting hot. And I know we've got a lot of people that like to fish 5 and 6 weights in salt water. But we run into a lot of times where you get a big trout, a nice redfish in shallow water, and they're going to get stressed if you have to fight them for a prolonged period of time. If you're going to, that's why I usually almost, I'm going to say 95% of the time, I fish strictly with an 8 weight, just so I can try to get the fish to me and released as much as you can. I'm not saying that you're wrong by not doing it, but what I am saying is, and especially now that we had such a hard winter hit us, do your best to get the fish captured, released, revived, and back on its way with as little obstruction as possible.
Good point.
Yep.
Good point.
Good. Yep. Part of conservation, guys. All right. I don't see any other questions yet in the chat, and I don't see anybody with a raised hand or anything. You see anything, Eric?
Don't see anything. Good discussion from everybody tonight.
John Purcell just raised his hand. What'd you do that for, John?
Did I?
He's
Yeah,
gonna
you
tell
did.
us about all the fish he's catching.
All right, guys, if you got fishing reports, send them forward. Let's get them posted.
Hey, John Purcell,
Yeah.
did you get that information?
No, I didn't get his phone number. Did you?
It should have been attached. I'll resend it to you.
Okay. Yeah, I sent him an email because I don't have his phone. So
Yeah, his phone number should have been that whole information, that whole page should have been attached to you. But
okay, I'll look again.
Okay, gentlemen, ladies, this is it. Have a great evening. Have a safe Memorial Day weekend.
we'll do it.
Thank you.
See you guys.
Yeah.
See you.
Have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
See you, everybody.
Hey, Alex.
Yes.
I was sitting around not having anything to do and saw the rugby game the other night.
Oh,
there?
the Sabercats.
Against the Houston team and Stars and Stripes or something,
Who won?
where they were, hell, when I left, it was 6-6.
Hey, Alex.
Yes.
Hey, this is John Eldred. Let me
Hey,
know about
John.
let me know about that chandelier trip. We had to cancel it in May, and I still got you on the list if you
Yeah, I was gonna say to you, it's right at the end of the project I'm working on, and then I'm moving to Ireland. So I don't know whether or not I'll be able to make it probably until next month.
Okay, that's fine. No,
Hey,
that's good.
John, did you get my message?
I did. I'll call Matt.
Okay. Yeah, I looked. I thought I mailed you something, but I'm not even sure. You still there, John?
It looks like John dropped off.
Okay.
You've
Okay.
had enough of you, Scott.